And then moving into the pay-per-view, Emmanuel Rodriguez, Gary Antonio Russell. That was, man.
Box.
How
young
quick,
man.
how
box.
quick was Emmanuel Rodriguez's counters? Anytime.
It was a blitz, yo.
Good gosh. Every time Gary Antonio threw something, he was firing
from the
back.
jump, Carson?
Yeah. You know who actually comes out looking the best out of that fight? In a way. Because he
blew him.
Destroyed
him out the ring.
Rodriguez. And so you saw what he did. Yeah. And Gary Antonio's a good fighter. I don't think all of a sudden
Is NUA a southpaw?
No, orthodox.
He's orthodox, right?
Mm-hmm.
If there's somebody that knows, Carson knows.
Yeah. No, I'm not gonna say what I was gonna say, but yeah.
Yeah.
That Rodriguez kid, they brought us back on like, hey, we want you to say something about this fight. I was like, I didn't study this dude. I should have done some research on this guy.
How bad were your betting suggestions, by the way? Whew.
Terrible.
Yo, you missed
Shout out
those.
to DraftKings.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Shout out to DraftKings, I suppose.
When he was up,
he's
up
up there,
talking?
and they're having him, and so he's doing these suggestions. I'm not a bettor, and anytime Shawn said something, I was like, all right, let me just do the opposite.
Yeah, it's cash out real quick.
Yeah.
I was hyped. I was ready for it. Had my notes together, all this and that. And after everything happened with Russell, I was like, yeah, this not even gonna go well for me with DraftKings. But hopefully they still like what I say and how I promote their business.
So let's and we don't need to dwell on that fight.
Both fights ended on cuts.
Yeah, that was talk about Shawn Porter as a headbutt. That was a serious headbutt. Put him down with a headbutt.
That right there.
He almost dropped
it. It just goes to show you that, when you may look at a fighter and say, oh, he does that all the time, or he's doing that on purpose.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the style, sometimes it's a specific moment right there with both those guys being southpaw, southpaw and orthodox. It just happens, So
should we talk about the very strange knockdown round and how that transpired? Well, not that we need to dwell on it, I guess, but
sure.
We wasn't sure if the fight was over.
Well, so he gets dropped and he was in bad shape. He gets up, I think they said about 8.5.
Yeah, and I couldn't believe the ref let that go.
When he ends up kind of counting to 10 anyway. Gets him to the corner, but the bell hadn't rung. So there was technically still a second.
No one knew what was going on.
And then he keeps, and I think it was his wording that was confusing. But he goes, and you obviously didn't see the broadcast, but the ref was saying he gets his minute, and everyone was like, "What?" And he keeps repeating, "Yeah, he gets his minute. He gets his minute." And everyone's like, "What are you talking about? It's the round.
Round's over." Yeah,
but the bell didn't.
What are
ring.
you talking about?
Yeah, but the bell didn't ring, so the round wasn't over. So they needed technically to do like you bring them together, wipe his hands off, time in. Ding. Bell rings.
And I don't even think the bell rung.
It didn't ring at any point. And then they had an issue with the bell or the round, like the next round, the clock didn't start correctly. But that was a mess.
Benji didn't make and
Benji got dropped too early last night. Benji got dropped.
Did he really?
Yeah, he and in one of the prelims he tripped.
See that?
He tripped. It was all on social media.
Turf monster guy.
Yeah, he tripped. Hey, the fighter stopped and looked like.
Wait a second. Give him a second.
Shout out to Benji.
I've never lived the life of a ref. I've been in maybe at a convention. I've been in the room where they given like a seminar to referees and judges and things like that. But I basically just kind of go off of my experience. What I believe a ref should do, I believe a ref should be verbal then physical. What I mean by that is you say break. If the guys don't move back, then you step in and you move them to the side. You get some refs in there that go in there, they slapping arms.
What the hell?
And I mean, everybody's trained differently. Saying all that to say that Benji needed to be extremely verbal and specific in this moment. I gave him his 8 count. He beat it. Go to your corner, round over.
Yes.
That's all. But when you've never been in this specific situation, you're in a lot of ways you're like a fighter where something is happening and you're just reactive.
Yeah.
And you really don't know how to kind of work your way through it and think your way through it. Then you realize everybody's looking at me for the white too, and you gotta get stuck.
Yeah.
Anytime you see a fighter and you're like damn, like why isn't he? He gets stuck. And it's a moment you have where you just get stuck. And that's what happened to Benji. And so, yeah, I mean, let's fast forward past it, but let's rewind back to when Jack Reese faced the exact same situation, and he called off the fight. Jack explained it like this. The guy got up, he beat the count, but I have to look at it as if there's 10 seconds or more left in the round. What decision would I make if there's 10 or more seconds in this round? Would I allow these guys to continue knowing that he's hurt and could potentially get even more hurt, which is why the situation where the bell rang actually, just rewind real quick, they should have rang the bell. I don't remember what fight it was. This was 2019.
I thought he was talking about his fight at first, and I was like,
no. He's like, oh yeah, that fight with Jack Reese. I was just like, okay, go ahead and cook. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Know,
yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm gonna just let you guys know that this exact situation happened. Number one, they rang the bell, which is what New York was supposed to do last night. They should have rang the bell. You don't stop the clock. You let the clock run. It runs, and you ring the bell. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, what Jack explained was, hey, I know that even though the bell rang, if it had been 10 seconds more left in the round, I could not, in my good conscience, let that fight continue. So I would have called it off. Even though the bell rang, I'm still calling this fight off. Whether he's right or wrong, or whether Benji was right or wrong, I personally felt like the fight should have been stopped. I felt like, especially with as limited as we were with communication from Benji, everybody felt like the fight was over. It seemed like, hey, this fight should be over, So I think that's one of those kind of gray areas in officiating where you really don't know what decision you should make, and so you kind of just go with instinct. And Benji's instinct led him to letting Russell continue. I can tell y'all right off the bat, other refs are trained a different way, and they would. And one ref that I know, Jack Reese, would have actually stopped that fight. And I think a lot of people felt like the fight should have been stopped at that point. What about y'all?
I wouldn't have been mad if it was stopped because it did look like he was in pretty bad shape. Yeah. But
yeah,
and then he continues, and I also people were kind of questioning the end, of the fight.
That was weird.
I think it was
the crowd we were lost.
I think it was an orbital bone issue.
Oh, is that what it was?
From the headbutt.
Shawn got something to say.
Did y'all see? It felt to me like Rodriguez let Russell live. Did y'all get a feeling of that at all? That he kind of like he pulled back and he wasn't aggressive.
Maybe
almost like he was letting.
I thought Gary Antonio actually probably played more of a part in that. I think he maybe put his foot to the pedal a little bit, so that maybe Rodriguez wasn't comfortable.
I'd like to hear from Rodriguez what his mindset was at that point, or what the corner said at that point. It looked to me like he actually pulled back and was like, "Hey, we have this win officially. I don't need to hurt this guy anymore."
I mean, it's possible that he just thought he had the win, which I think he did. I'm not sure if Gary Antonio won maybe a round.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe it was just he was going to go into kind of coast mode, but then the headbutt.
And I mean the prediction before the fight started. I mean, obviously we know 14 seconds last fight it was over. Even when talking in the barbershop, it was like he's supposed to get that victory last night, right? Russell.
Yeah,
that was.
Yeah. He's the up and coming guy.
Yeah.
You put him in the ring with somebody who's been in the ring with NUA because of that resume. You want to add that to your resume. So that plan definitely backfired.